Hi, welcome everyone. So once again, we'll continue with the third part of the cyber risk management. So we're going to look at the tools, the techniques, and then the reporting frameworks available that we could use in terms of cyber security management. Okay. So remember in the very last section, I was making mention of a point that sometimes you see an organization trying to operate on the premise that there are risks in the system. So let's work on how best we can fix this risk. So they operate on the assumption that there's something wrong with our system. So sometimes they will bring in someone to come and check what is wrong with our systems. Okay. So we want to continue building it from there. There's one concept which is called penetration testing. Okay. Which works similarly on the same grounds. Most organizations will use that. So we're looking at three main areas. So we're looking at the tools that we could use, techniques, cyber risk frameworks, and then reporting frameworks. Okay. So penetration testing, like I'm saying, it is the situation where the organization will employ an ethical hacker and ask this person to more or less examine their system to play a hacking role and see how best they can detect possible breaches in future. So there are several types. One, remember, hacking is not just from internal, from external. It could also be internal. So the first three over here looks more or less like looking at the external. Okay, so we have network discovery. Here, the ethical hacker who has been given the permission by the organization will go in, penetrate the system, and then go in and check all devices which are connected to the organization's network. So from your smartphone, from your internet of things, from the hardware, the desktop, the laptops, and see how they connect to our system and to what extent can they pose threats. Okay. Then they will also look at vulnerability probing. In this case, all the connected devices, which ones are susceptible to attack? Is it the laptops? Is it the servers? Is it the phones? Okay. And then they will also look at exploiting vulnerability. So here, the ethical hacker will attempt to gain access to the system, seeing how long it takes to gain access and what access he can gain, which kind of records can he gain access to. Okay. So this trade normally deals with outside. Okay. And then we also have the internal network penetration. So like I said, not all hacking is from outsiders. Insiders also could pose threat. Companies who have disgruntled employees could want to hack into the system and pose troubles to them. So again, they will do an internal hacking to see how easy internal folks, disgruntled employees, could hack into their system. Then we have the web application penetration testing. So here, more or less, you see the applications that we have in the system that we use. Which ones have been poorly set up? Which ones lack robust controls? Okay, which ones can easily be bypassed and then um, used or leveraged upon? Sorry, which ones can be easily bypassed by folks, whether internally or externally. So in this case, you more or less try to write some SQLs, okay, structured query languages to inject into the system. So to manipulate data, the database, and to see if you can gain on unauthorized any unauthorized access to this information. Again, we also look at they also have this wireless network penetration system. People come in behind our doors, they use our Wi-Fi, try to penetrate into the system using rogue means. Okay. Some people have some special devices that can easily break through your wireless system. So those of us who normally use the open access should be careful because mostly hackers would leverage on this open access and try to see which machines, which equipment they can easily penetrate through. And then we also have simulated phishing testing. So the hacker can send serve as a fisher. Okay, send any email. We want to see how best the folks in the workplace follow the guidelines in terms of phishing attempts. So the ethical hacker can be given the right to send an email, a malicious email, okay, given the permission, and see which of the employees will respond to such emails, which of the employees will follow through. Then they will see whether employees within the organization are following the training they've been given, the internal guidance in terms of security, cyber security. So these are seven of them. There could be more, but these are the main seven penetration testing tools that are used. let's look at other soft techniques that we could also use. Now, the softwares we use in the workplaces are very important, but we need to safeguard them. So the security of the softwares are important. They are in three levels. Number one, the first level is to prevent people from accessing these softwares if they are not authorized. The second level is that assuming they are able to penetrate the system, because all prevention cannot be 100% foolproof. Okay, so if they are able to bypass the controls and get into the system, what do? We need to write some detection programs to be able to detect those who have been able to breach into our system, into our softwares. Okay. And then the third instance is that the third level is that once we've been able to detect, let's respond appropriately. Let's alert the departments who have the right to investigate and to ensure that they seal off those breaches. Again, whenever we are designing any software security, three main elements come to the design. Have we designed it well? Is the software designed such that it will be compatible with the devices that are authorized to connect to them? Okay. So check whether the design is right. The externals, okay, the hardwares, okay. Then we also look at the internals, okay, the code. The codes which have been written, are they well written? Can anyone at all have access to these through the codes? Can someone replicate the codes? Okay, so look at the code reviews as well. And of course, after you've looked at the externals and then the internal coding system, test the system. Run an internal control. It could be an internal audit control to check whether these controls are working at the appropriate level and whether they could detect any risks. Okay, so any software security should always follow through these three levels and these three considerations: the design, the code review, and then some internal audit. Okay. Then again, we have a technique which we could also use: forensic analysis and malware analysis. So forensic analysis follow three sequential steps. When you hear the word forensics, then we know crime is coming into play. So one, in reviewing any cyber crime scenes, we should, number one, look at a system level analysis. Look out for footprints, any signs and indications, any triggers to identify whether there's been any changes made to our system, to our IT system. Now, number two, we look at the storage. So normally you see at workplaces, people are given limited storage to use, because if you give them more storage, then they can have the chance to hide something from you. So we do a storage analysis to see whether the storage assigned to each person or to each department is appropriate enough so that they cannot conceal anything somewhere we cannot find. And then we look at the third stage, which is the network analysis. People are connected to the network we are using. Okay, so the main thing is to identify any trends in the network activity to see whether these trends gives rise to anyone breaching into our system in future. Okay. Then we have malware analysis from the viruses we know, the Trojans, the botnets. So there are times you may have heard where an organization will intentionally introduce a virus into the system, into a particular maybe a small computer system. And what they will do is that they will see how the virus works. They now pick the virus and try to decompose it or decompile it, break it down to see how it works, how it has been structured, how it manages to infiltrate the system, okay, and how it is able to target some specific information in the workplace, or whether it works randomly, haphazardly, indiscriminately, destroying or attacking all files within the system. So malwares are normally in different layers of code. So sometimes it can be very time consuming to see how it works, to re-engineer it in a reverse order. Then afterwards, once they are able to know how the malware works, how the virus works, sorry, once they're able to detect how the malware, the virus, the Trojan, the botnet, the spyware, the ransomware, once they're able to know how it works, they then come to decompile it and then they disassemble it. So they look at how it has been structured, how it has been designed. It's bad. It's bad. So they break it down to see how it has been structured, how it has been designed, how it fits together to work. Okay, so that's malware analysis. Normally we take a reverse engineering and then we break it down to see how it works. In this case, then the organization will be able to put in place systems, okay, systems and structures in order to avert any future attack by similar threats, okay, similar threats. Now, there are a number of cyber security or cyber risk frameworks, reporting frameworks, which are being implemented. We have various organizations, various commentators and experts who have populated a number of frameworks. Okay, so we're bringing it to a close after the frameworks. So these five guys you see over there, Bailey, Kaplan, Marcos, Derek, and then Rizek, they developed this six-stage action framework, which they call the digital resilience. Okay, now they are saying number one, if you want to be resilient digitally in your workplace to withstand any cybersecurity risk, identify all possible potential issues within the organization. And as an organization, try to see how it can be protected. Okay, what we want protected in the organization. Number two, they then stated that we should now aim towards a well-defined target, a smart target. So set an achievable target, include any prioritizing any priority areas, and remember any basic controls that could affect the entire issues, not just cybersecurity risk, anything, all of them, all right. But of course, try to include any specific cybersecurity issues. Then we also look out for how best to deliver the new cybersecurity system. So who does what? Assign roles and responsibilities. Organization comes in here. If there is the need to change management issue, bring them in. Number four, we then establish the risk resource trade-offs. Which of the potential solutions do you want it implemented? Which ones do you want to throw off? So you weigh the pros and cons of each potential solutions. Select the most appropriate. It could be one, it could be a combination of them, and plug them together within the organization. Then the fifth step is to develop a plan that will align the business and technology together. Okay, that will align the business and the technology together. Of course, here, what we have to do is that in aligning the business and its IT systems, we should ensure they comply with any regulatory benchmarks or standards and see whether there could be any future developments that could be included in our development, in our alignment of organizational plans and then the IT. And then finally, what these five guys stated was that we should ensure that the business can sustain this particular process into the foreseeable future period, in which case all employees must be involved and all employees must understand their clear-cut roles in this particular activity. Now we have the CIA Triad. It has no relationship with the US CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. No, it is just a triad. You remember the objectives of cybersecurity. We mentioned availability, integrity, confidentiality. You remember them. So it links up with them. I mean, the CIA Triad is also a framework which says that our systems should be online, available for firms to function 24/7. Data should be accurate, should be reliable, and it should be processed by only authorized personnel. Integrity of the data is very key. And then confidentiality, limit access to data, whether they are in use, whether they are being transported from one place to the other, or whether they are being stored. Okay, these are fundamental. They align with the AICPA approach to cyber security risk management, and they could be used in all organizations across all organizations, whether small, medium, or large. Okay. Again, we have the International Standardization Organization who proposed the ISO 27001, a complete framework, okay, not just covering cyber risk, but covers almost all risk management processes in an organization. And they also propose 6 sequential steps which needs to be followed by any organization in order to ensure a robust risk management framework within the system. Now, they stated one, the organization should always have a security policy. It should be updated as and when to ensure that it meets up with current developments. They should also clearly define the scope of the information security management system within the organization. Does it cut across nationwide or globally? Okay, so clearly define the scope and who does what, of course. Then conduct a risk assessment of the whole system and record them in risk registers. Once you've been able to identify the risk, manage and identify the impact, of course, the likelihood, the impact, the overall effect. You then manage these identified risks. Okay, which ones do we tolerate? Which ones do we totally clear them off? Which ones do we accept or we can manage? Okay. Then in the fifth instance, set control objectives and controls that could be implemented to ensure that these risks do not mature enough to kill off the company. So ensure that you put in adequate controls, set control objectives, and then finally prepare a statement of applicability, which will encompass all of these to ensure which of the which control objectives have been met, which ones can be implemented, which ones should be carried forward. So a comprehensive statement. Others have it more of a summarized document which are shared across all employees within the organization. Others will also have it more or less aligned to those who are charged with governance or who are responsible for this activity. Then we have the NIST or the US. The NIST is actually deals with the US. So it's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They also provide three components. Their NIST framework has three components. One, they are saying look at the implementation tiers. Which kind of levels are they in? So link your risk implementation tiers to the various dimensions of the company. In this case, link it to the risk culture. Do we all have a uniform way of managing risk within the system? Do we have that culture? Okay. What is the risk appetite of the company? What are our budgets and what is the mission of the company? So we try to provide this context. And then the second one is looking at the core elements of the cybersecurity activities. And they are based on five key principles. One, and so the same story keeps evolving. One, identify the threats. If you identify the threats, what would you do? You protect against them. If you're not able to protect it fully, what do? You detect those ones which have been breached. And if you detect those breaches, what do? Do you leave it? No, you respond appropriately to these breaches and clear off the ones you are supposed to clear. So you see, it is quite sequential. I identify the threats and I protect myself. If I'm not able to fully protect because someone has managed to bypass the system, I detect which ones have been breached. You detect those ones, respond to them, control them, manage them, okay? And then if there is any compromised data, try to see if you can recover them, okay? And then again, the third point of the NIST framework talks of the profile, the risk profile, a comprehensive profile which will map the objectives to the risk appetite levels, to the resources of the organization, to any desired outcomes of the core. Okay, so those are the three. Now, regardless of any of the frameworks we have looked at, you can see that they all work along the same similar lines. Okay, understand your system. How is your system working? Protect it from any attack. If you are not able to protect it as much as possible, make sure you detect, write a comprehensive program to clearly chart a plan on how you can deal with these issues when they occur. And when they occur, you get them resolved. Recover the ones you can recover. Okay, they all follow the same pattern as you can see in the core. It almost follows the same pattern. Then finally, the AICPA CIMA Global, they also have proposed a three-step approach for any organization, and it is something we all know, that management should clearly describe their risks, okay, their risk appetite, their risk culture, the controls they have in place comprehensively. They should give all this information which is sensitive, they should spell it out. The detailed information, give a benchmark, give a control criteria, give any standard you think you are complying with, a detailed one. Now, management, number two, management should be able to tell us that we have met this um, risk risk control. So we have been able to achieve this, okay, in accordance to ISO 27700-01, in accordance to whichever benchmark. So management must clearly give an assertion, like in audit assertions, management assertions, existence, accuracy, completeness, those ones, rights and obligations. So management should be able to provide all these assertions that yes, they have accurately done this, they have completely done this, and they think this exists. Then at the end of the day, we should get an independent party coming to verify the records, like an auditor coming to look at the system. So that's why we normally have systems auditors. They will come, they review your system, and then they give an opinion on whether your risk are the risk you have are significant or they are not significant, and whether your controls you have in place are effective or they are not effective. Okay, now these risk description criteria, we are told, is quite detailed. It could be about 33 page, and it links to the main content in the cybersecurity threats and cybersecurity processes by AICPA. You can find this usually online on the CIMA website, AICPA. Now, the control criteria is also comprehensive document which spans over 300 pages, and it tells you the various potential risks and potential controls an organization can have in place. So these are detailed documents. You have most organizations using them, and we have these professional bodies updating it as and when. Okay, at the end of the day, we should have a robust cybersecurity risk management report. Okay, and you can find example of this, like I said, on the CIMA AICPA website. Okay, so we'll bring it to a close here, and then we see what next we can do. So that's good. I split the videos into three. Sorry for the little coughs in between. It happens. Okay, we are humans. Okay, we are humans. So split into three. We have the first part dealing with the cybersecurity threats. Okay, the second part dealing with the cybersecurity processes, and the third part looking at the tools, techniques, and then the frameworks, the reporting frameworks. That's it. All three chapters resolved. See you soon. Take care. Bye bye.